Welcome to Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks. Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, Tera Roberts. I am Jason Fitz for the next hour. That's right, the next hour. We are here to hold your hand and get you ready for the playoffs. We're all wearing black today. It feels very somber. Andy Behrens like, I'm wearing black because my playoff hopes died, all right? So, this is a funeral episode for me. They are dead. But, good sir, I feel like we're in formal. Give me a beacon of hope. It's not all is lost, right? We've got your expertise. We're going to be fine.
Oh, certainly not. I've already got 6.4 fantasy points in the bank from the combined efforts of Cooper Kupp and Brock Purdy on Thursday night. So I'm feeling great. I'm looking ahead to week 16. Let's keep this thing rolling.
I mean, Harmon, is there anything better than starting off with that Thursday night? A playoffs on the line, everybody knows what they need for point production, and we get that on Thursday night.
Yeah, we've got some, mega performances like the Jamar Chase Thursday night game against the Ravens this year, which is like, oh, you're playing against Jamar Chase? See you next week. I mean, we'll give it a shot then the next time out. This one, very different. You went up against a Thursday night player, unless you went up against Puka, who had a pretty reasonable game, nothing like crazy like the week prior. But yeah, you're feeling pretty good if you're going against any of those teams. And if you're like Andy and you have any of those players, I don't know. Maybe start to look at next year's schedule.
It's a tough road.
All of this just feels wild. Tera, I want to think that it's going to be easy today. I want to think that we're going to just get points. You get a point. You get a point. You get a point. I don't know. I don't know if I can believe, Tera.
I can believe it. There are some very interesting matchups, some potential offensive boons. There are also some potential 40-point and lower matchups here as well. So it could go either way, but I am feeling optimistic. It can't get any worse than getting 0 points from Cooper Kupp. So we're heading in this one and smiling and hoping that we're going to get some solid games this day.
Yeah, it can't get any worse is what they're going to write on the tombstone of my fantasy football season. Fantasy playoffs are underway, not for me, but for everybody else. We'll get you set. Remember, we got 15 games to play, and we got 2 on Monday night, including, a late night Monday game that I still can't believe wasn't flex. Big matchups. We're going to get it all figured out. You guys can get part of this. Hashtag AskFFL, plus hop in the YouTube chat when I'm looking down. It's because I'm reading all of your great comments. King Harmon seems to be one of the quotes that comes in every time. We'll see if he is still the king. Scott Pianowski taking your questions over on Twitter X right now. We're going to get to as many questions as we can throughout the show, peppered in everywhere. So start hammering them in, and we will get you answered. In the meantime, let's get you caught up on actives and inactives. A lot of big names here on the early games. Breece Hall, active. David Njoku, inactive. Tony Pollard, active. That could be a big one for fans. And then in the later games, Bucky Irving, who gets a ton of run on this show, I think, expected to play. Lad McConkey, which feels like an AI-generated name, expected to play. Josh Downs, expected to play. Kenneth Walker, the third, doubtful. We'll see what that means for the Seahawks, not just in fantasy, but also actually on the field. Let's get to some top fantasy storylines for this week. Matt Harmon, what do you got for the top storyline?
Oh, for me, it's got to be Justin Jefferson versus a Bears defense that shut him down very recently. Now, there's a couple of things to kind of look at here. Number one, and, cover your ears, Andy Behrens. The one thing that I do think is not being discussed enough in this potential matchup is that last time these two teams faced off and Justin Jefferson was held to sub 30 yards while his teammate Jordan Addison had all the fun, was that the Bears employed a different man at head coach who was not a good head coach, but he was the play calling defensive coordinator. So I'm curious to see if we see anything different in terms of how the Bears are going to defend Justin Jefferson after last time. I'm sure Eberflus played a big part in putting together the game plan of kind of shadowing him around with Johnson there while also having a safety over the top. But again, that let Jordan Addison just go absolutely crazy on this team. So I'm pretty skeptical that they're able to hold Justin Jefferson down to another slow outing in this potential rematch here.
All right, Tera, your favorite fantasy storyline this weekend is?
It is, can Tua stay hot this week? We would be calling it would be underwhelming kind of just to see that Tua has been absolutely on fire recently. He has finished as a top 10 quarterback with a minimum of 24 fantasy points for the last 4 weeks and a total of 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He has been a changed man. And this week he faces a Houston defense, and it's been a weird year for Houston's defense. They struggled early on. They got back on track with the return of Azeez Al-Shaair. And then last week when he was ejected, everything kind of fell apart again. So this week with Al-Shaair out with the game suspension again, Tua gets to face the fun version of this defense here that gave up 2 touchdowns to Mac Jones of all people. I feel like we're going to see him just kind of carry on throughout the remainder of the fantasy playoffs and be a potential league winner this week and next week in particular. He should absolutely feast this week.
Feels like the narrative finally needs to officially change constantly on Tua, the quarterback. All right, Andy Behrens, give me your top fantasy storyline this weekend.
Yeah, listen, we need Kirk Cousins to stop his slide, and we need it to happen soon. 1, because his team has lost its hold on the division, and 2, because Atlanta's offense is just too big to fail in fantasy. We really need Kirk to get right. A month ago, his team was 6-3, cruising. They'd swept the Bucks. They had a huge edge in the division. Atlanta has not won since. 4 straight losses in which Kirk has thrown 0 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions. These last 2 weeks have been really non-competitive losses. He seems a step behind. He's thrown some terrible balls, very little velocity. If we can't stop the slide against the Raiders, now without Max Crosby, sorry, Fitz, it might truly be Michael Penix's time, which is a crazy thing to say. Drake London right now is the wide receiver 7 overall on the season. Darnell Mooney is the wide receiver 14, but they aren't going to hold those spots if Kirk is just finished throwing touchdowns. So we need some vintage Kirk today or this week in a good way, just to rebuild confidence in the Atlanta receivers that we've been leaning on all year.
I don't know what's more gross, the way Kirk has been playing or the fact that I'm going to watch every snap of that game and still yell at my TV like it matters for my favorite football team. All right, my top fantasy storyline of this weekend is Amari Cooper. And look, glory, hallelujah, bring out the choir, sing all the Christmas carols, 14 targets last week. That was substantial, and we've been waiting for this moment. Now, in what is the matchup of the weekend, and we'll be talking about it a lot throughout the course of the show, you got to think that the way that the Bills are going to continue to try and get that level of offensive production. We saw what they did in a shootout. They crammed the ball into Amari Cooper every single possible opportunity that they could. I believe that will continue. So a big game for Amari Cooper. And I think this is now the reminder that the reason we were in love with the deal for Amari Cooper at the trade deadline is exactly because of what we saw last week. That continues today. Let's get a question in here. KJ209, flex, Kelsey or Bowers, Judy, Pittman, Amari Cooper. What do you think, Harmon? Kelsey or Bowers, Judy, Pittman, Amari Cooper?
Oh man, I mean, all those players together, I do kind of feel like Brock Bowers is the best option there. A little bit tempted by Jerry Jeudy, but some potential bad weather in that game. Also, just generally, you know, I think that the Chiefs are more vulnerable to the slot receiver than they are to the outside receiver with no Cedric Tillman. You imagine Judy's lining up mostly outside. So yeah, I think Bowers is the right answer here. That Falcons defense has had some moments of late, but I still don't overall think they're a very trustworthy defense.
Yeah, look, guys, he's not going to go all in on the Judy hype train right now. It hasn't happened yet. It is not going to happen. Last-minute pickups. Let's get to some last-minute pickups that are still out there, still available in some leagues that can help you win in the playoffs. Good Lord, you need it. I know it. Andy, who do you got for a last-minute pickup?
Oh, give me Stone Smart, tight end of the Chargers. Many are saying he's ODU's finest, Matt Harmon. He's likely to have a significant role in Week 15 with Will Dissly out and a user-friendly Bucs defense on the schedule. Smart is a converted college quarterback, been around a couple years. He's not really a do-it-all tight end, but he is an outstanding receiver and athlete, has good speed for his size, has a 40-inch vertical, caught 3 balls for 54 yards last week against the Chiefs. Obviously, tight end has just been a minefield this year for anyone who doesn't have Kittle, Bowers, McBride. So plenty of you are looking for flyers at this position. Smart is one of the best in Week 15. He's facing a defense that ranks 30th overall against the pass, that has allowed the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Stone Smart, actual name, is looking like a top 10 option at the position this week.
That's why you watch this show. I mean, Andy Behrens bringing out Stone Smart. That's just A+ work by you. Matt Harmon, give us a last-minute pickup.
Yeah, no, actually what people tune into this show for is for me to discuss the same 5 receivers that I always like to talk about, including Rashad Bateman of the Baltimore Ravens, baby. Yeah, let's take no more of this black depressing nonsense. We're all wearing the clothes here today. Enough already. Let's talk about something that makes me truly happy, which is Rashad Bateman in a great spot here in Week 15. This guy's widely available. You can pick him up. I think you could potentially start him this week against a Giants defense that hasn't been good all year. year. And now as the season is winding down, might be just getting worse. They have injuries at all three levels. They have injuries to critical players, including Dexter Lawrence, obviously just a total difference maker up there, both as a run stopper and as a pass rusher from the interior. Bateman dealt with a minor injury against the Eagles prior to the bye, but that looks all cleaned up now. He's off the injury report, and he's been a really good player for this Ravens team, and he's popped up for a couple of spike weeks. Considering how bad this Giants defense is, I think we could see another Bateman spike week if you need it in a deep flex league.
All right, Tara, give me your last minute pickup.
Yeah, Matt wants to talk about his favorite players. I'm going to talk about another one of his favorite players and do him a favor here. It is Elijah Moore, who is my last minute pickup. Cedric Tillman couldn't clear concussion protocol. David Njoku is out as well. So Elijah Moore should see a good increase in targets this week, and it's an excellent bounce back opportunity because week 14 was underwhelming, to say the least there. But Moore is no stranger to big performances. While touchdowns have been a little bit seldom for him, he has been a target hog here and there in the slot. And this week's matchup against Kansas City is literally perfect for that. Moore gives you a real shot at 12 to 15 fantasy points in half PPR, even without a touchdown this week. So he is a solid add to put in for immediate production for your fantasy lineup.
Let's get a question in here. Rob Watson, Andy Behrens. Rob needs to know, must win to avoid last place. God, I feel that. Need a wide receiver and flex, half PPR. Wide receiver options, Cooper, D-Hop, Elijah Moore. Running back options, Pacheco, Sincere, Bucky. Thanks. What do you think, Andy?
These are pretty good options for somebody who is trying to avoid last place. I would go Amari Cooper at wide receiver. It's the highest ceiling, right? He's tied to a game where the point total is like 54.5. So we're expecting a ton of points and yards there. So Cooper seems relatively safe to me, coming off a game in which he saw 14 targets. And I would also go Isiah Pacheco. He's coming off a week in which he really reclaimed the featured role for the Chiefs.
All right, great work. Now we're going to let Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon be like the old couple on the Muppets and go sit in a little box and watch the actual people do work here. Tara and I, time for us to do Make Your Pick. We'll help answer some questions you guys have out there. The first question, Tara, comes from I Am Groot. I just wanted to say it that way. Start 2 is flex in half PPR. CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Rico Dowdle. I'm also starting Nico and Evans for the stack with Baker at quarterback. What do you think, Tara?
So this is interesting because I know we always look at lineups and say, do you really want to put all of your eggs in one single basket, the Dallas basket of all things to do at this time right here? And do you want to maybe diversify your lineup? But the problem is that the two clear best plays here are actually CeeDee Lamb and Rico Dowdle. CeeDee Lamb is the clear top pick here. So we definitely want to go with him. Now, London is bumped up a little bit because of all the injuries to Vegas, but Rico is also primed for a massive game against Carolina. So yeah, I want to go with both CeeDee Lamb and Rico Dowdle here. Go Dallas.
Look at that. By the way, Groot, hope that we answered your question. I'm going to believe it's the real Groot that typed that in. Pete Valderas, I need 2 flex. Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas, Sincere McCormick, D Swift, not T Swift, PPR league. What do you think? Tara, what do you got?
This one is a little uncomfortable because you've got a lot of volatile options here. Now, I'm going to go right off the bat here with Brian Thomas. I know that Mac Jones at quarterback is irritating, but again, he's actually supplied Thomas pretty well in terms of volume. He's the clear wide receiver 1 there. He has touchdown equity. And even though it's not the ideal matchup here, sheer volume can get him going there. Now, with your second pick here, it's tough because we mentioned the point total there in that Detroit game being super high, and then we talked about the upside that Sincere McCormick has becoming the RB1 here, but DeAndre Swift is the one that I want to go with here. He underwhelmed last time against Minnesota, but he actually got sniped at the goal line there by Roschon Johnson, who was out, so this could be a solid 12 to 15 fantasy point game for him.
All right, the next question comes from Wang. If I could do an old accent, like old British accent, I would, but I can't. But I love how formal he's written this. I have 2 decisions. Oh, ye faithful ones, your help is required. Half PPR. Pick 2 between Jacoby Myers, DJ Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, and Hawkinson or Mark Andrews. Shall I forever be indebted for your service? All goes well. I'll be back with the exact same question next week. What do you think, Tara?
Oh man, here. Okay, we got to pick 2. So for sure, we're going to go with DJ Moore. I talked about that Minnesota game that has already been played very recently here with Minnesota and Chicago. And in that game, DJ Moore was absolutely on fire, had an excellent performance, top 5 potential again here with Chicago chasing points. So we're going with DJ Moore. Now, all of these other options here, Jacoby Myers, the potential change at quarterback there. DeAndre Hopkins, volume is an issue. I think you want to go with TJ Hawkinson here, of all people. The volume has been coming to TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison as the secondary options there as teams try to clamp down Justin Jefferson. So Hawkinson is a safe bet here.
I'm not buying into the Desmond Ridder revenge game, I see. All right, Jamie Chambers next with the half PPR. Pick 2 for flex. Javonte Williams, Jalen McMillan, Elijah Moore, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Kamani Vidal. Thank you. What do you think?
Well, Elijah Moore, I'm sticking with my guns here. I just recommended him, so I'm telling you to start him here with all of the injuries. And then with the second one here, this is tough. I don't trust Jalen McMillan. I have high hopes in terms of his production, but we can't trust it. I think you have to go back to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and cross your fingers that last week was just a blip and he gets back on the touchdown track. He's the only one of the remaining options here that just really give you a high upside play here and at least a guarantee of looks from the quarterback. So go with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
Look, my fantasy team might not be in the playoffs, but I finally nailed Westbrook-Ikhine's pronunciation, so I feel like this season's a win. Andy, Matt, you guys are done in the box. You're over there being crotchety, and this is perfect setup for you. Enough already. What do you guys want to yell about?
Oh, yeah. Fitz already referred to us as Statler and Waldorf, and it's really going to feel like it in this segment. Time for a cathartic segment. This is mostly for our benefit, in which we discuss the player, the team, the narrative, the odd storyline that we have simply had enough of at this point in the season. Harmon, start us off.
Yeah, Andy, at least you're like near the age bracket of these guys. I mean, for me, I'm a healthy 33-year-old man. Like, I should not be this crotchety, and yet there's so many things that grind my gears out there, including the Arizona Cardinals offense. I want to say enough already to the Marvin Harrison Jr. back shoulder targets. If I never have to see another one again, it will, I mean, I'll finally be happy. I'll finally be able to rest. If I see another one, it will be far too soon, okay? Enough already with the Marvin Harrison Jr. back shoulder targets. It's been one of the least efficient connections, the least efficient throw player to player across the entire NFL. And man, it's just been, I get there's some narrative out there like these guys got to figure it out. This is how they're going to get chemistry with each other, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, not necessarily. There's plenty of other plays that you can dial up for the number 4 overall pick, including the crossing routes that he's been so good on this year. I mean, shoot, how about this week against the Patriots? They give up the most points per drop back when they use 2 high safeties, according to Fantasy Points data. Be a couple of big boys, drop back, and throw that thing over the middle of the field. That's where these guys have actually been efficient. But again, if I never have to talk about this for the rest of my days, I will be a much happier person. Unfortunately, I feel like it's something we're going to have to continue to discuss.
I'd love to see you crotchety before your time. I am very much in my crotchety era. Enough with fantasy managers who think they can match up their own lineups to their opponents. Stop getting hung up on this. Nobody does this all season, but then the playoffs roll around and we start getting questions like, should I bench Justin Jefferson this week for Harrison Jr.? Opponent has Kyler Murray. Or start Rodgers over Burrow. Opponent has Devontae. Listen to me. Set the lineup likely to score the most points. Period. That's how we do this. This is not a game in which we attempt to match up with an opponent's roster. Your team, totally independent of their team. And they only face each other virtually, not literally. You cannot negate or neutralize or cancel the points accrued by an opponent. That's not a thing. Unless today is your first day playing fantasy football, you should already know that there are a million ways in which a receiver can have a huge game while his quarterback finishes as like the QB 16 in fantasy. Happens all the time. And it should go without saying that Kyler has many paths to a big day while Harrison goes 3 for 30. Set your best lineup without any thought to your opponent's starters. You aren't trying to contain your actual real life fantasy opponent or neutralize them. That's not how this thing works. Just set the best lineup like you've been doing all year. Okay, give me one more, Harmon.
Oh, that was beautifully said. Nothing better than galaxy braining this time of the year. I'm just going to keep this straightforward and simple. Enough already with this Bengals team. And I know that sounds weird on a fantasy show because, listen, they have given us gifts all season long. Jamar Chase has been the only true difference-making wide receiver in fantasy. Joe Burrow has been a great draft pick. T. Higgins, when he's been on the field, has one of the more productive receivers in the league. Chase Brown, probably like the 1-0 RB pick that worked out for the 0 RB bros this year. And yet, what an irritating team, Andy, because I'm talking about all these great offensive performances. I mean, Jamar Chase is competing for the Triple Crown, and it just doesn't matter at all. Last time we had a Triple Crown winner, you might have remembered this, folks, it was Cooper Kupp in 2021 when the Rams went to the damn Super Bowl. This Bengals team is going nowhere, and they've been going nowhere for so long. So it's just absolutely pathetic that we're getting some truly historic, real awesome offensive performances from this team, and it doesn't matter at all because the defense is beyond anemic. Talk about something that grinds my gears. That certainly grinds my gears.
We do just need them to think that they're going somewhere, to fool themselves into thinking they're going somewhere for just a couple more weeks. And then whatever needs to happen to Cincinnati can happen. All right. Wonderful airing of grievances today, actually. Let's send it back, though, to Fitz to get the show back on track.
We can't afford the rights to the Muppets theme song. Otherwise, I would play it right now. Let's turn to our fantasy game changers for this week, powered by Ram Trucks, where we're identifying some of the most impactful players in one of the top fantasy matchups on the schedule. Sunday Night Football in the Northwest. Packers travel to Seattle. The playoffs started today. This will be a first-round matchup in the NFC. Packers favored by 2.5. Over-under on this in 46. Packers favored by 2.5 at Seattle. Let's remember that. Over-under 46. So, fantasy game changer, Tara, to you is...
I'm going to start us off with a hope you are a fantasy game changer and can come back to us with Jayden Reed. I talked to him about him on the podcast this week with Matt and the extreme volatility of his performances this year. He has the talent and the quarterback to finish as the overall wide receiver 1 in any given week. And it doesn't matter if it's a tough matchup. And that makes it a little bit hard to predict because we can't figure out when those big boom games are going to come and when the absolute bust game is going to come. And we discovered that the floor is literally 0 fantasy points coming off of just 1 target last week that he was unable to secure. But this screams a game where Matt LaFleur is going to be very intentional with designing plays for Jayden Reed to really get him going. And Seattle's defense has improved, but it has still been consistent. And I expect Reed to have a strong bounce back week with a good performance here.
All right, your fantasy game changer, Andy, is...
Oh, it's Zach Charbonnet. He's been an unstoppable fantasy force, basically, this season whenever Kenneth Walker is out, as is likely to be the case this week. Last week, Charbonnet gave us 193 scrimmage yards and a couple of touchdowns against the Cardinals. For the year, in 3 games without Walker, 369 total yards, 5 touchdowns, 15 catches for Charbonnet. He doesn't quite have Walker's home run ability, but he is very clearly a high-quality featured runner with a full skill set. Green Bay isn't necessarily the easiest run defense he will have faced this season. They're 9th overall against the run, but it's actually also not the toughest run D either. And this is a good player. Seattle is at home. We should have a close game on our hands. The run should remain in play all game. Also, Charbonnet's best trait is arguably his receiving ability. He's going to remain a key weapon regardless of the game situation here. Start him with total confidence on Sunday night.
Matt Harmon, your fantasy game changer is...
Oh, I mean, it's got to be Josh Jacobs. I mean, one of the biggest game changers of the year. The Packers, all this time we spent in the offseason, and when I say we, I mean me and anybody that had discussions with me, spent time talking about, this Packers wide receivers room. What an interesting unit. Let's try to figure this thing out. Well, the Packers are dead last in neutral pass rate this year. That's a big reason why all these wide receivers, Jayden Reed, certainly first and foremost, have been super volatile all year because they just have been running the ball over and over again. And it's kind of hard to argue with it because it's been so successful. Jacobs has been exactly what they bought in free agency, a guy that can just carry a heavy workload, can run out of multiple concepts. I will say it's a pretty difficult spot here. Seattle's defense has really turned it around in the second half of the season. Mike McDonald has this defensive line cooking. He's remade the linebacker Packer room. They're 4th in rushing success rate allowed since week 10. Just been a really good, sound stop unit. Leonard Williams is playing out of his mind right now. Byron Murphy's showing some signs too up on the defensive front, but this Packers run game has been so good. I'm not too afraid of it. I think he can still be a game changer in this matchup.
Love it. Those are your game changers. Andy Behrens, quick, I'm going to ask you a question because, I'm sitting in the host seat. I get to do this. Take us off the rails. I'm getting a text from a buddy that says, you said earlier smart, to play smart. What about Stone Smart versus Tucker Kraft? Where are we going? I got to answer the question.
I actually have Stone Smart just above Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft is and it's mostly been touchdowns this year, but he is very TD or bust, right? I think Stone Smart can have a real role against one of the friendliest pass defenses that we've seen in a long time.
No, great. I can't get my own fantasy team to win games, but I'm helping the people I know. All right, hurry up offense.
Why don't you just give him Andy's number? I mean, for God's sakes, Fitz, why is he texting you?
Not a bad idea. Let's go. Not that I'm not doing enough here. The chat got text and we're doing this hurry up offense. 20 seconds, barely got any time. Who do I sit? Mixon, Cook, starting Pacheco or Thielen in the flex, full PPR. Harmon, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I deserve that after what I just did. So I'll go Mixon here over Cook. The volume's just been so good. He's been very effective. And, I mean, if full PPR, I'm going Adam Thielen over Isiah Pacheco there.
All right, next one comes from TV Dan. TV Dan says, sit one, half PPR, A.J. Brown, London, or BTJ. What do you think, Tara?
I love Brian Thomas Jr. I do, but when you're looking at these guys here, A.J. Brown has a level of upside that unfortunately Brian Thomas doesn't have, so you can't sit him. And then Drake London, the matchup here and the opportunity with Vegas dealing with all those injuries, upside a little bit high there. So Brian Thomas, I'm sorry, gotta sit you there.
All right, the next question comes from Courtney Scott. Ask FFL, start 2, full PPR, Henry, Kamara, Charbonnet. Look at all the time I'm giving you guys. Andy Behrens, what do you got?
Yeah, listen, Derrick Henry is like the most obvious screaming start this week against the Giants defense. So that's an easy one for me. And I'm going to go Charbonnet because he's tied to an offense that might actually score points this week. I don't really want anything to do with the Saints at this point. They're like just a flaming crash landing of a team right now. No thank you. Alvin Kamara is great, but no thank you.
Yeah, you and their entire fan base share that sentiment. Al Toby comes in. Drake May or Mahomes from Al Toby? Drake May or Mahomes? What do you think, Harmon?
This Al Toby guy, I don't know, seems a little questionable. I'm not sure about him, but
why did he just text you? He could have just texted. Look at the handle, Al Toby Yahoo. Go ahead.
Great, yeah, he certainly could have just texted me. So maybe I should just filibuster the rest of the way and not answer the question because of that. But no, I would go Patrick Mahomes slightly over Drake.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to make an enemy of Al. That's all I'm saying. All right, a couple of YouTube questions in Razil 820. Happy Sunday, all. Happy Sunday to you too, Razil. Always appreciate you. A huge thanks for helping me get 25 out of 31 teams to the playoffs. Today's question for my top price team: pick one flex. Sutton, Evans, Judy, Thielen, wide receiver sponsor Amon-Ra, and JJ. Woo, that's a lot. What do you think, Tara?
Oh, that is a lot. I kind of lean towards Evans on this one. There are a ton of great options there, but it's Evans that I would have to go with.
All right, the next one from Ramsey. I'm Durkee. I don't know how to say your first name. I'm sorry, Ramsey. Mr. Ramsey, Mrs. Ramsey. Flex Cooper, Thielen, Ridley, Neighbors, Myers, or Waddle. What do you think, Andy Behrens?
Man, I think these are all great options. This is a crazy collection of talent for only one flex spot, but I'm going to go Calvin Ridley here against Cincinnati's defense. I mean, they've just been as generous as any in the league so far. They've given up 30-plus points in 6 games.
Another YouTube question comes from Jonathan Jones. Ask FFL, trying to play playoff spoiler. McCormick, Swift, Jaden Reed, or Quentin Johnston for the flex? What do you think? Harmon had to laugh while I say Quentin. Go ahead.
Don't be disrespectful. I mean, come on. Quentin Johnson, one of the most important players in the NFL after last week. I would say it's got to be Jaden Reed because, listen, if you're just trying to play spoiler, who cares if he gives you another 0 burger? Your season's over. And if he drops a 30 burger on your opponent, even better.
Look at that. Why is there always burgers? To Nicholas Lowe, Kamara or Taylor, DJ Moore or Thielen? What do you think, Tara?
Kamara for sure. For every ounce of fear we have about that New Orleans offense, at least he doesn't have the worst matchup in the world with Jonathan Taylor. And then Thielen or DJ Moore, it's surprisingly close, but I would still go with DJ Moore on this one. Talked about earlier the matchup there being excellent for a repeat performance, top 5 for him. So DJ Moore.
Next question from the YouTube chat comes from Screwy Rui. Fun to say. Pick 3 for my 3 wide receiver spots. A.J. Brown, Higgins, DK Metcalf, Shakir, Addison, Thielen, Allen, half PPR. Actually, this is from Twitter. Sorry. Half PPR, Ask FFL. What do you think, Andy?
I think A.J. Brown is a pretty easy call, despite the internal friction with the team this week. I'm going to go T. Higgins as well. And then it's close, but I'm going to go Jordan Addison, who just absolutely cooked the Bears last time.
Yeah, that is fair. Epon comes in next saying, flex Aaron Jones versus Brian Thomas Jr., full PPR. Harmon, what do you think?
Oh, man, this one is really close. One of the more difficult ones. So good thing you threw it to me because I'm definitely going to get it wrong. Aaron Jones, he's had a couple of big games. He's had a couple of down games of late. I think I'm going to go that way. Even though I feel okay about Brian Thomas Jr., I think the higher ceiling is with Jones.
Andy Behrens mentioned some of the drama in Philadelphia. That's obviously on all of our minds. And on Inside Coverage, we talked about the drama in Philadelphia. What's up with A.J. Brown? And frankly, why so much of it seems to lead back to Jalen Hurts. Check out a little of our coverage, our conversation from Inside Coverage.
It's slightly concerning to me that everything always seems to lead back to Jalen Hurts supposedly being the problem, right? Like the implosion last year, it was, well, Jesus, Jalen can't throw in the middle of the field. Oh my God, Jalen and Nick Sirianni, there's this fundamental problem that's broken between these two guys. Then this year it's, oh my God, Jalen's turned the ball over. Now we got to change the entire offense for his limitations. I think I called it an exitless maze of quarterback cannibalism. Like they are going to cannibalize this guy no matter what it takes, no matter how many games they win. Eventually we're going to get to game manager. He's just a game manager. Anybody could step in and do the stuff he can do.
Jalen Hurts is Dak Prescott. That's what it is. Like, Dak Prescott was second in the MVP voting last year, right? And the moment Dak Prescott struggles at all, it's, oh my God, Dak stinks. Get rid of him. That's just the markets. I think playing quarterback in that market, you need to be Brady, Manning, Mahomes, whatever. You need to be just about perfect because they will just pick you apart at every turn. The fan base will do it. It's just the way those two teams are. New York teams too, same way.
All right, with that conversation happening, let's talk a little bit about the Steelers and the Eagles matchup. That is the big matchup coming up. Everybody's got their eyes on the Eagles, a 5.5-point favorite. The over-under on this one, 43. This is Steelers at Eagles. Look at the records of these two teams. Just a reminder how good, for a lot of bad football, but there's some pretty good football happening in this one. So when you start looking at this one, what stands out to you, Andy Behrens?
Yeah, not the buzziest player in the game, but I just have a note of appreciation and respect for Najee Harris. He's headed into a tough matchup, obviously. Philly has been good against both the run and the pass. Harris is pretty often overlooked. Fantasy analysts have been trying to give his job to Jalen Warren for like 3 years. But here's the thing, Harris always shows up. He's never missed a game in his 4 seasons. He's already over 1,100 scrimmage yards on the year, averaging a career high in terms of yards per touch. He's also about to clear 1,000 rushing yards for a 4th straight season. And just in case you think it's all about volume with Harris, just note that he is currently leading all running backs in missed tackles on his carries per PFF. He also is among the leaders in runs of 10 or more yards. He's got 24 of those on the season. He's averaging 2.9 yards after contact per attempt, which is a pretty healthy rate for someone who sees the sort of volume that he does. Harris isn't really a highlight machine except when he's trying to hurdle people. He's not Saquon, but he has been remarkably consistent. Scored double-digit fantasy points in 7 of his last 8 games, and he's a really good bet to do it in this one.
All right, let's get a question real quick. Lil Moo, I don't know where Big Moo is, but Lil Moo says flex, DJ Moore or Harris? What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I would actually go Harris here. And I hope the right answer is DJ Moore. I've got him in a couple leagues. He's a bear. It'd be great if he was the right answer, but I would go Harris here. The volume is absolutely locked in.
I wonder if you have to say Lil Moo like quiet. Okay, a lot of questions about that. Matt Harmon, give us what stands out to you in this matchup.
Yeah, if the fact that Jonnu Smith is balling out and Kyle Pitts is still doing nothing wasn't enough for fantasy managers to potentially owe Arthur Smith an apology, I think the performance of this Pittsburgh Steelers offense is yet another piece of data point in that argument. I think Smith has done a really good job coaching up this offense for a couple different reasons. You know, Russell Wilson's a guy who is a pretty hyper-specific quarterback. He's a guy who really wants to attack deep and outside the numbers, whereas Arthur Smith's pass concepts have mostly revolved around around being proficient over the middle, which in the offseason, it's like, how is this marriage going to work out? This is a very, kind of stubborn coach and a coach and a player who's only really done things one way. Well, Smith has done a pretty good job adjusting his offense to attack in the areas that Arthur Smith typically hasn't. And really, it's leaned into Russell Wilson's strengths as a deep vertical outside the numbers passer. But still, when he goes over the middle, in the deep middle of the field this year, Russell Wilson's got one of the best passer ratings in the NFL. He's got one of the better adjusted net yards per attempts in the NFL. So they've leaned into the strengths of the quarterback, which I think is what we consider to be good coaching. So when Arthur Smith's name comes up on the head coaching radar in the offseason because of what he's done with this offense, don't think back to your old hurt fantasy teams. Think back to what he's done with this group, and a particular quarterback who has struggled to fit into some offensive systems before. I think he's just done a really, really good job coaching this offense up.
Another shameless plug to listen to Inside Coverage, because Charles Robinson explained to us that part of the reason the Bears, for example, are in love with Mike Vrabel as a head coaching candidate is because of his ability to identify good offensive coordinators because of the success of LaFleur and the success of Arthur Smith. Go check out Inside Coverage. It was a really smart conversation. Tara, give me the standout storyline to you in this game.
I didn't think this would be the one at any point throughout the season, but I want to talk about Pat Freiermuth and ask him to come save us, because I had essentially given up all hope for Pat Freiermuth, but he has had a touchdown in each of the past 2 games, and it is his time to continue to shine with George Pickens out. Someone has to catch the ball there. Someone has to, and none of the backup receivers popped last week. Even Van Jefferson getting the 1 touchdown, it didn't really amount to anything from a fantasy perspective. We can't lean on any of them. The Steelers will lean on the run here, of course, but someone has to catch the ball and be a reliable look in the red zone in particular. And Pat Freiermuth he's in a weird range of untrustworthy tight ends with guys that could go off but could get you 0 points. I feel like he is a guy that I want to lean towards because he has legitimate top 5 upside again this week. So Pat Freiermuth coming through, hopefully again for us in week 15.
I love that. And for me, we talked about the drama, and we'll bookend this conversation about this game with the drama of A.J. Brown. I don't think you can be A.J. Brown and speak as loudly as you continue to speak, and Jalen Hurts, and hear all the rumblings that you hear without eventually coming out and saying, you know what, fine, we're going to prove otherwise here. And there is a little bit of a statement opportunity. Now, look, the Steelers' defensive line is not one that I really want to take on throwing the ball 50 times. Let's not get it twisted here. But there are going to be opportunities for A.J. Brown to be A.J. Brown. I think there's a target monster game coming. And sometimes wide receivers speak because that's exactly what they need, what they crave, what they want. And it's up to the Eagles offense to figure out how to make that happen. Frankly, it doesn't have to happen throughout the course of the entire game, but early on, I expect a bunch of targets to A.J. Brown, and let's see how that plays throughout the course of the game. That being said, got a question on this one. DP Hawk says, have the first seed in the playoffs, bragger, but drew a Josh Allen team that scored over 200 points last week. Need a wide receiver and a flex. A.J. Brown, Addison, Stevenson, or Bucky. Harmon, what do you think?
I mean, brother, you're not benching A.J. Brown. I do not care how it's gone lately. It's just not going to happen, especially when we're talking about somebody who has pretty significant upside, considering he can break a slate. We've seen it this year. He's been one of the most efficient wide receivers on a per route basis. He's an auto start in one of these spots here. The second one is tough between Bucky Irving and Jordan Addison here. Again, I think because you need more of a ceiling play, I'd probably lean towards the wide receiver. I just am a little skeptical about Bucky Irving, like how 100% he's going to be, considering they have some other backs there they can turn to. So me, I'd probably go Addison, but I wouldn't shame you if you went Bucky there in the flex.
See, it was important to get Harmon's advice because it's time for primetime picks. And when we talk about Harmon, we're talking about the leader. You call him the king in the chat for a reason. It's anybody's game. There's 2 weeks left in this thing. The week's 1, Harmon, Tara, both at 4. Andy Behrens. What happened there? Like, look, I might still be in last place from the tiebreaker, but I'm creating enough chaos to be the spoiler in this fantasy thing that's happening here. Total points also sneaking up the board. All right, you guys know how it works. We picked 3 games that we're going to be choosing from. It's Green Bay and Seattle, Chicago, Minnesota, and then that juggernaut that everybody loves, Atlanta taking on the Vegas Raiders. That's going to be the 3 games we're picking from. We snake drafted. That means even though I won last week because of points, Andy still got me. That means I picked first. And I'm going to steal Harmon. That's what I usually do. I just listen to Harmon throughout the show. He did tell me it's going to be a difficult matchup at times, but still, we all know that Josh Jacobs can do Josh Jacobs things. I like that. I like running backs. It's the only way I ever win this thing. So I'm taking Josh Jacobs, the first pick overall in this thing, partially because I'm biased to the player, partially because Harmon told me to. And it's going to be his fault if it doesn't work out. Andy Behrens, what do you got?
Yeah, the total points leader and the people's champ is going to select Bijan Robinson. Fitz, you know that you should have picked it. You know it, but you can't root against your Raiders. It's a weakness. Huge steal by me here. Give me Bijan with confidence.
Look, I like that pick for you. I just knew there were so many great options in this game. Who had to pick that early? Tera, God, I'm awful. Tera, what do you got? You're picking next for us.
I'm reeling. I don't want to talk about total points. I want to get the win here. I put out a tweet this week calling for Kenneth Walker to rest up for the next 3 games so that Charbonnet can live. And apparently every other fantasy managers agreed with me and felt the same way. So I'm going to stay on brand here with Zach Charbonnet and hope that he carries me to victory here in the competition and also playoff teams.
That means, Harmon, you're at the turn. You get 2 picks. What do you got for us, champ?
Yeah, well, one of them is going to be spent on the best wide receiver on planet Earth, which is Justin Jefferson. You 3 goofballs just completely ignored one of the best wide receivers, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL. So interesting play by you 3. My next pick, I'm going to go with Drake London here because I do think Kirk's going to give us a little bit of a bounce back performance. This team has been much better throwing against man coverage than zone coverage. That's been true all year long. These last 2 teams have been very zone heavy teams. Your Raiders, Fitz, are the 9th heaviest man coverage team in the NFL. So I think this is a pretty good spot. And they also just stink. So this is a pretty good spot for Drake London to have a ceiling game for Kirk Cousins to give us a little bit of a bounce back.
I mean, my bold fantasy prediction on the Thursday night show is that Kirk Cousins gets benched at the half. So we'll see what happens here. Tera, what do you got for us? What's your next pick?
I'm going with Brock Bowers here. I'm a bit torn on this pick because I don't like the potential of Desmond Ridder, but Brock Bowers is an elite kind of talent that's been thriving with terrible quarterback play all season, and it's just a beautiful bounce back opportunity for him. I'm calling for like 25 points for him from Brock Bowers, so yeah, let's go.
Oh, that would be a beautiful thing. Andy Behrens, what do you got for us next?
Yeah, give me Aaron Jones. He has been delivering 100-yard performances against the Bears since I was a small child. It's been a long time. He's been doing it for a really, really long time. Just did it a couple weeks ago. He's gone over 100 scrimmage yards in 4 of his last 5 against the Bears. So this is a gift that I will not refuse.
All right, I'll do my evil maniacal laugh at the turn because, look, Tera taking Brock Bowers makes a lot of sense. But as we've talked about on this show for a couple weeks now, Jacoby Myers has become a target monster. That will continue because the Raiders are going to have to throw the ball a bunch once they're down 28-0 early in this game. So that's not going to go well, but it could mean some trash touchdowns for Jacoby Myers. I'll take Jacoby, and then I'll come around the turn. And again, I'll even maniacal laugh for the target monster that has become Jordan Addison. I don't know why. Nobody knows why, but let's just continue to force feed the ball. Like Justin Jefferson, that's a cute pick, Matt. All right, but the smart people back here, we're going for Jordan Addison at this point. That's, what'd you guys say earlier? Don't galaxy brain this. That's exactly what I've done through this, which is why I'm in last place. Andy Behrens, save me from myself.
Yeah, good call. The sharps are here at the start of the draft, right? I'm gonna take Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's the wide receiver 6 on the season. Over his last 5 games, he's averaging nearly 19 fantasy points per game.
All right, and that means Tera, you are up next. This is a big pick for you.
It is, and this one is pretty simple. I've talked about it like, I don't know, maybe 5 times on this show. DJ Moore, I'm taking him here. We saw this matchup a couple of weeks ago. He finished as the wide receiver 4 overall. All I want is a repeat performance from him here.
Chris Pittman asks in the chat, help, with a bunch of L's. One more time. Flex, half PPR, Ramondre, DJ Moore, or Brian Thomas Jr. What do you think, Tera?
Yeah, it's DJ Moore for me. It's not the bias seeping in here. It's the fact that Ramondre has been a little inconsistent in terms of his fantasy points. And Brian Thomas Jr., while we love him, again, this is Mac Jones and a shaky matchup here. So DJ Moore, pure volume, that's what we're going with here. Harmon,
you close this thing out. What do you got for us?
Yeah, maybe Andy's going to accuse me of galaxy braining in this one because it's basically just down to 2 pretty volatile wide receivers here between Jaden Reed and DK Metcalf. I'm going to go DK Metcalf, 1, because I think it's just been too long since we've seen a big game from him. The Packers are vulnerable to outside wide receivers. Secondly, if it is Jaden Reed that has the big game, trust me, I'm going to be feeling the benefits elsewhere on my normal fantasy teams. And if it's a bad Jaden Reed game, I don't want to have to feel it twice. So I would say that's not galaxy brain. I'd say that's just protecting your mental health, which is what I'm doing here with this pick.
I love that. Harmon, which one of us had the best draft and why is it me? You know, we're out of time on this one, so we'll just continue to move along. Fantasy face-off time for Harmon and Tera to have a very sincere conversation.
Yes, Tera, I'm kind of a little bit proud, but also maybe a little bit weirdly ashamed of us that no one was a sick freak enough to pick Sincere McCormick in primetime picks, but we get to talk about him here. He's been one of the hottest pickups of the week. His head coach, Antonio Pierce, called him the starting running back this week, so you know that always means a lot when the head coach says that. Let's talk about him here against a couple similarly ranked players, starting with Isiah Pacheco, probably the biggest name we're going to weigh him against here.
Yeah, it is. And this one, although it is very close, I will say that it is pretty simple here. Yes, Pacheco has been very underwhelming since his return, but that was to be expected. We knew that it was going to be a slow ramp up here, but last week he doubled his carries from the previous week. So we're taking a leap of faith here that the volume continues to increase and he can take advantage of a reeling Cleveland defense here. But again, Matt, I feel like it is a little shockingly close here. These guys aren't that far off in rankings for me.
Yeah, that's how I have it too. There's not a big gap between these two guys, but I do have Pacheco ahead. I'm with you. Look, keep it simple. One guy plays for the Chiefs and one guy plays for the Raiders. I don't know that you need to say too much more than that. These next couple of guys, I think, will be a little bit. Oh, Fitz, please keep it down back there. I think you're not on camera. I think these next two will be a little bit interesting. Let's talk Jaylen Warren versus Sincere McCormick.
Yeah, this one is really, really close here. And the reason for that, I mean, you're talking about Sincere McCormick, who is the clear RB1 there. Not just the coach stating it, but there is no logical reason that anyone would suddenly say this guy who has been thriving from a yards per carry perspective and is the best back that we visually have, let's turn around and give more volume to Alexander Mattison. And Jaylen Warren, on the other hand, he does take a clear backseat to Najee Harris. So it's an RB1 in theory on the team versus an RB2 here. But McCormick has kind of ranked in a similar range in terms of getting that 7 to 8 fantasy points that we've been seeing from Jaylen Warren. So I don't think there's a big difference here between the production for them. But the touchdown potential here for Sincere McCormick in this matchup, I am going to take the little edge on there that they'll be able to move the ball decent enough and provide a first touchdown for Sincere McCormick. So I would go Sincere McCormick over Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, not a lot of touchdowns to go around there for Las Vegas. Although I will say, I think in the passing game, it's been a little interesting with the Turners up there in the box. I got to give credit to Scott and Norv Turner. Even the run game, it looks like they've identified something with McCormick here. I think I would go McCormick as well. I do like his odds to get into the end zone, especially with a pretty nice matchup against the Falcons defense. It is generous to running backs. All right, final one we've got here. We've got Sincere McCormick versus Tank Bigsby. And no pressure, Tera, but I know another cast member on this show, a wizened, grizzled veteran of the show, wants to know specifically the answer to this one because he is weighing this particular lineup decision.
Yeah, he is.
Oh God, that is a lot of pressure here. And this is tough because this is a caveat answer because I have zero doubt in my mind that if the Jags keep this game competitive, Bigsby is the better back and the better pick here. But I have zero confidence in saying that they will keep the game competitive. This outcome can go 1,000 different directions. Aaron Rodgers could jump up and obliterate the Jags defense, or it could be a nice close matchup where he gets good 18 carries and good volume here. Because I don't know for sure, I want to go with the back that I know has a guaranteed amount of touches versus the one who could get into a game script where he is completely phased out. So for me, it is Sincere McCormick because I know I can probably get 10 fantasy points out of him versus Tank Bigsby, where it's such a mixed bag outcome dependent on Mac Jones.
I'm with you on this one. I think this is McCormick. I think he's got a floor of probably like 7 to 8 points, something like that, just with the usage that we've seen. Whereas I think the floor for Bigsby is like 2 or something if they get blown out in this game. And I do think there's a chance that the Jets offense, look, when it's firing on all cylinders, saw it last week against a much better defense than what Jacksonville's got going on against the Dolphins last week. Pretty solid outing there. I think that I give the Jets the better odds to win this game. And again, that's just not the game script that we typically see Tank Bigsby thrive. So yeah, he could, if they for whatever reason control this game, get you like 80 plus yards and a touchdown. I just don't see that many scenarios where that is happening. So hopefully, again, that wizened, gray, grizzled veteran of fantasy football, not going to name any names. Hopefully we helped him out, and hopefully we helped out all the people out there. Let's bring back Fitz and Andy for a little lock it in.
Grizzled vet doesn't sound like a compliment necessarily, Andy Behrens. Like it feels like it should be. It feels like it should be a compliment, but I think right now we've got, there might be a little sassy
compliment from Matt Harmon, so hey, I'll take it.
That's it. Harmon needs a hug. That's what we've decided here. All right, let's lock it in.
No.
Like we'll lock in certain things like hugging Harmon. Let's lock in something that we are certain has to happen. A player you are ready to lock in. Give me a name.
Oh, Jameis Winston is that name, man. If you're a deep league manager, a superflex manager, lock him in. Fitz, if we take his numbers from the six starts this year and just extend him over a full 17 games, it's the most Jameis Winston season of all time. At his current rates, his 17-game pace is 5,361 yards, 34 touchdowns, 734 attempts, and 26 interceptions. It does not get any more Jameis-y than that. He's produced against very good defenses, too. You need to think of Jameis right now almost exactly as you thought of Baker Mayfield in the first half of the season, right? It's not always a clinic, but he's throwing 45 times a game, usually deep downfield, and he is just piling up stats. Do I wish he had David Njoku with him this week or Cedric Tillman? Sure. It is an issue. But, man, we're also going to get two, three, maybe four just head-scratching throws from Jameis in any given week. It's part of his charm. But, man, he is just the definition of, like, a locked-in top 10, top 12-ish fantasy starter right now, regardless of opponent.
All right, so Drew Whitman asks, Ask FFL, Winston or Love? What do you think?
Oh, it's no fair to make me put a finer point on it. This is one where if I did have David Njoku, if I did have Cedric Tillman, I would probably lean Winston. But, man, that Packers offense, even though Jordan Love has had some quiet games, they've been very clean games. And in each of the last 3 weeks, they've reached 30 points. So I think I want the upside of the Packers offense.
By the way, I think one of the most interesting stories of next year will be where Jameis Winston's starting, because it will be somewhere. Mm-hmm. Andy Behrens, what do you got? What's the next name you want to lock in?
Yeah, give me Josh Downs. He's returning from injury this week after a full practice week, a great sign, and you can immediately trust him. Downs has hit double-digit fantasy points in 7 of his last 9 games, which is no small achievement in the Colts passing game. He's the one receiver in the offense who's really seen consistent volume, and he's made all the routine plays, plenty of highlight plays. Downs is also the closest thing to a security blanket in this receiving core, just a player who helps settle the offense. He's facing Denver this week, and that is obviously an effective defense. They've got a stay-away corner in Pat Surtain. Let's just remember that Winston and the Browns put up video game numbers against Denver a couple weeks ago. Also, Surtain only rarely travels to the slot. Hasn't happened a lot this year. That's where Downs almost exclusively operates. So that guy is going to be a huge problem for Michael Pittman, for Pierce perhaps, but probably not for Downs. So you can fire him up and expect another useful day.
All right, let's bring everybody back together. Grab your pens and papers. It's not time for Pictionary. It's time for Hurry Up Offense, where we're going to get questions up. 25 seconds. We're going to answer as many as we can. Susan says, help. Female, a rookie playing in an all-male league, desperately trying to get first playoff win. Full PPR, need to start 2. Lad McConkey, Flowers, Taylor, or Reed. Harmon, help Susan.
Oh, man. Big pressure for me. Shout out to Susan on this one. McConkey's a definite. If he's out there, you're playing him. And full PPR, I think I'm going Flowers over Jaden Reed here. Oh, good luck.
Well, if it works out for you, Susan. Let us know how it works. The next one is legs. Friends never let friends skip legs day. Need 3. Connor, Chuba, Rico Dowdle, or Charbonnet. Ask FFL. I'll ask Tara. What do you think?
These guys they're all great options. Quite frankly, we're going to go Zach Charbonnet for sure. We talked about the level of upside that he has here with Walker out. And then Chuba Hubbard, pure volume there. There is literally no one else that is going to carry the ball. Chuba, top 10 potential.
I'm just jealous of legs and reminded that I need to play in teams with less. Oh, yeah. You putting Rico in as your 3rd?
Yes.
Nah, we'll put that in. Andy, Rick comes in with a very nice headshot. Looks like a pleasant person. Need one for running back, wide receiver, flex. Warren, Allen, Williams, Denver, Edwards, or Addison. Only 0.1 PPR. Ask FFL. What do you think, Andy?
0.1 PPR. That's adorable. Man, I was really glad that you said Jordan Addison here at the end because this is a rogues gallery. Otherwise, give me Addison.
If your league is so complicated that we all laugh at the point scoring process, then you should just be slack. Justin says, painful decisions, PPR, Thomas, MHJ, sincere or ETM flex, ask FFL. Harmon, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's Brian Thomas Jr. here. A couple different reasons. I mean, coming out of the bye, they finally made him the featured player. He's had an over 30% target share the last 2 games. He was not anywhere close to that prior to it. Now Evan Ingram out. Who else is getting the football here?
All right, let's get some YouTube questions in. This one comes from Trizzo. Says PPR, Hunter Henry or Stone Smart? Tara, I'll let you chime in on the Stone Smart love at this point. Hunter Henry or Stone Smart?
Stone Smart on this one. I mean, matchup is great. We know that we're going to get volume from Justin Herbert. I know it feels weird to go with the backup tight end, but at the same time, sometimes Hunter Henry operates technically as the backup tight end behind Austin Hooper. It's such a weird situation there. So yeah, go with the better quarterback, better offensive situation.
I'm still shook by how badass a name Stone Smart is. All right, CJ Webb. Andy, a lot of pressure on this one. Happy marriage is potentially on the line. Hubby and I fighting for playoff spots. Mooney or Shakir? Save a marriage.
Hey, man, some real talk here. If you're turning to Andy Behrens to save your marriage, perhaps it shouldn't be saved, huh? I'm just throwing that out there. I'm going to go.
Hottest take of the show.
It really honestly is. I'm going to go Khalil Shakir here.
You win Shakir? You win Shakir. I just want to make very clear that you win Shakir so we know how this all plays out. Please track it so we can figure out the marriage next week. All right, JT McNabb, I'm in trouble. I started Kyron and Jawan Jennings. So DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, D-Hop, Quentin Johnson, or Waddle. Pick 3, full PPR. Harmon.
Oh my God, 3 options, all those names. I'm going Jalen Waddle. I'm going DJ Moore. The last one name escapes me. Give me the names again. I blew
you got Garrett Wilson, D-Hop.
Oh,
Quentin
Garrett
Johnson
Wilson. Yeah, Garrett Wilson. Yeah, Garrett Wilson. Right.
Still no Quentin Johnson love, even when we try. The next one from Adam LaFald says, I need 1.5 PPR. Coleman, Worthy, Douglas, Downs. Thanks. You guys are the best. No, Adam, you're the best. Tara, what do you think? Coleman, Worthy, Douglas, Downs. Need 1.
I do think it has to go with Downs. We got a good argument there from Andy, and when we're looking at the potential volume there, he's the one, even coming off the injury, has the most reliability in terms of volume here. So, yeah, we're gonna go Downs here.
The next question is from Justin Finch. No idea if he's related to Miles. Who y'all think, Jaden Daniels or Herbie versus Bucks defense? What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think you can go wrong here. I think these are great options. Both of them top 5, top 6 options. I'm going to go Jaden Daniels. Maybe you're worried about them getting up too much and then running the ball, but if they get up too much, Jaden Daniels is going to be a huge part of that.
Let's go back to some Twitter questions coming in, or social media questions in general. The next one comes from Karen. Ask FFL, Hurts or Mayfield? What do you think? We'll go to Harmon on this one.
Oh, yeah. I had a team with Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Herbert, and Mayfield was the odd man out for this one in a super flex. Look, Jalen Hurts is just, maybe it's a little bit of a complete scam, the 1-yard touchdowns, but Karen, we've rode that scam all the way this far. We're not giving up now.
Tara, this one's so long it might hurt our friendship, but we'll try. G, ask FFL, full PPR, need 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. Jacobs, B-Rob, Charbonnet, Tracy, Rashad White, Jefferson, Higgins, JSN.
Good team.
Okay, easy part. Your wide receiver is Justin Jefferson. Your 2 running backs are Jacobs and Charbonnet, and then your flex option is close here, but I am going to lean T. Higgins on this one. Nice bounce back opportunity.
Lions and Tigers and Bears. Oh my. Chuck and Gazino, I think. We're going to say that. Knicks or Kyler? Simple question, complicated answer. What do you think, Andy Behrens?
It's kind of a complicated answer. Kyler has just been all over the map this year, right? It's either 28 fantasy points or it's 12 fantasy points. Knicks, incredibly, has been super bankable, and I like him against that Indy defense. So I actually want Bo Nix here.
All right, the next question comes from Saul, who says, PPR, Darnell Mooney or the absolute superstar known as Sincere McCormick. What do you think, Harmon?
My God, I mean, Sincere McCormick has been discussed so much on this show the last few weeks, but hey, that's the world we live in. I'm going to go Darnell Mooney on this one. We saw it last week. Kirk Cousins doesn't have to have a good game for Darnell Mooney to have a good game. Went over 140 yards against the Vikings. I think he can give you something similar against the Raiders.
We have a marriage update. Very important. CJ says the marriage is great. Just want to keep it happy through this NFL weekend. Even better. Okay. CJ, very happy. That makes the entire show happy for you. Mike asked this question. BTJ or Jacoby Myers full PPR? What do you think, Tara?
We know that Jacoby Myers is fantastic, and I get the appeal here, but man, I just don't trust this quarterback situation. Which is saying a lot because of Brian Thomas Jr. and Mac Jones, but Brian Thomas Jr.
I always love a creative name. Fresh Prince LaFleur. Haha. Mixon, Montgomery, Taylor, Charbonnet. One has to sit. What do you think, Andy?
Well, I think Joe Mixon and David Montgomery are definitely playing for me this week. And then it's close between Taylor and Charbonnet, but I'm going to go Charbonnet. I'm going to put the pain off until Sunday night. Again, he's been fantastic whenever Walker is out.
All right, so remember, guys, next weekend, as your fantasy football playoffs roll along, is a complicated weekend. We're here Thursday, as we are every single week. 7:30 to 8 p.m. We'll be here ahead of the Broncos-Chargers. But there are 2 Saturday games, too. So we got a lot we're going to break down on Thursday. Important you join us there. We'll break some of that down as we figure what it all means on Sunday also. So we'll get you set for all of it. And, of course, we're back here noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific for all the latest next Sunday. So wild weekend ahead. Make sure you're hanging out with all of us. We genuinely appreciate the time that you give us every single week to talk about fantasy football. For everybody behind the scenes that works their tails off, Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, Tera Roberts, I'm Jason Fitz. Thank you so much for watching Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks here on Yahoo Sports.